Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Capability. We just said that we would degrade it so it was not an imminent threat.
Ian, panel, stand by for us. We're going to go to Rachel Scott now, who's on the phone joining us from Washington, our senior political correspondent. Rachel, we are getting word that President Trump is going to speak tonight at 10 o'clock, about an hour and a half from now. But again, this is something that President Trump promised going into the election, that he was not going to be the president of forever wars. He was going to end U.S. involvement in some of these wars overseas. Now here he is initiating this attack on Iran, a country of 90 million people, and big questions not only about what comes next, but divisions within his own party and support.
Absolutely would. And we are already hearing from a number of lawmakers tonight, including Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a Republican senator on Capitol Hill, who had direct conversations with the president multiple times over the last several days, in which he urged President Trump to participate, to join Israel and strike Iran's nuclear sites directly. And we have heard from Senator Graham tonight already. He said that this was the right call, that the regime deserves it, saying, well done, President Trump. But there are plenty of Republicans who have clearly stated that they did not believe that the president should be getting involved. And for that primary reason, this is what the president ran on, being a peacemaker, pulling the United States away from ongoing conflicts, not getting the United States even more involved in ongoing conflicts. The president was asked directly about some of those words from Republicans, and he said, look, the bottom line here is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He believes very strongly in that. But undoubtedly, this is going to divide the party. And the question now is, do Republicans rally behind the president as he moved forward with this action, or do they speak out against it? We know a few did have a few warning signs leading up to it. We are learning tonight, as you said, the president is expected to address the nation at 10 p.m. tonight. And as Ian clearly noted, it cannot really be understated here, just the immense pressure that the president was under from the Israelis. I was told he was under immense pressure from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself. The president, we know, was in very close contact with him. They stayed very close over the last few days, I'm told, talking sometimes even multiple times a day. The president, a week ago, in a remarkable turn of events, said that this was possible, but that the U.S. at that point was not going to be involved. Then we saw him leave the G7 summit early to rush back to the White House, and that kicked off a series of meetings that the president was having with his national security team in the White House day after day, ultimately now leading up to this decision. We know the president was warming up to the idea, and tonight he announced it via Truth Social, and he will address the nation at 10 p.m. tonight Eastern.
Rachel Scott, thank you so much. Let's go to our chief Washington correspondent, John Karl. John, you've actually been in touch with President Trump, speaking with him over the past couple of weeks about a variety of different issues. This idea of the president warming up to the concept, the possibility of striking Iran directly, do you have any sense of how quickly that developed and where it came from?
When he told us that he was going to make this decision at the last second. I don't think that was quite what happened here, but this came together incredibly quickly. And this is, without question, the most consequential decision Donald Trump has ever made. And where this goes, will this be consistent with the promise that he made when he first got in to politics, when he first became a presidential candidate, and he talked about ending forever wars? The question now is, did he just possibly take the first step towards ending what has effectively been a forever war, which is United States adversity with Iran, something that goes back to the hostage crisis and the seizing of our embassy in 1979. Iran has been a challenge for every American president since Jimmy Carter, in many ways overshadowing other initiatives, other efforts to get objectives in the Middle East. So did he effectively put an end to the Iranian threat, or was this the first salvo in yet another forever war in the Middle East? I reached out to a prominent Arab diplomat from a country that's allied with the United States with a simple question. I think this is the question that we should all be asking: what now? What next? And this diplomat said, honestly, no clue. The Iranians have a vote now. So what happens? We have 40,000 troops roughly in the Middle East. That's a force, and it's a force that can be used to protect American assets, to attack the Iranians, but it's also a target with. And the Iranians, their nuclear program may now effectively be gone, but the thousands of mid-range missiles it has, short-range missiles it has, can be used to target not just American troops and American assets in the region, but American allies. I don't know which way this is going to go, but I can tell you this: this has the feel of a decision that is far weightier than any Donald Trump has had to make in his time as a political figure in his time as president.
Yeah, and nobody starts a forever war thinking it's going to be a forever war. You look back at Iraq and Afghanistan, the intention was things were going to be wrapped up much, much quicker than what ended up happening. And here you have a country, 90 million people. We have already started to see some demonstrations in the streets in recent days against the United States, against Israel, and what all of this could mean going forward. The Ayatollah Khamenei, we're told that he was hunkering down in some undisclosed location, but had already named 3 potential successors. So what happens to him? How does Israel move forward? How do they go and verify what happened at some of these sites that were attacked? Let's go ahead and bring in our Matt Gutman, our chief national correspondent. Matt, you've spent a lot of time throughout this region. I know that you have a lot of sources in Israel and beyond. What are you hearing? What's the reaction you're getting tonight?
I think I just want to jump on the point that John Carl made just now, Whit, and about how historical this moment is and how weighty it is for President Trump. Are we entering into a new forever war? We have to remember that Iran is the world champion of the forever war, waging a cloak and dagger war against the U.S. and Israel, the great Satan and the little Satan, for over 40 years now, right? They have had terrorist attacks behind the scenes. They have launched small-scale attacks. They have built armies around that Ian referred to earlier, that Shia Crescent or the Ring of Fire in Lebanon, Hezbollah, in Yemen, the Houthis, in Iraq, another group called Hezbollah. They have effectively surrounded Israel over the past 40 years and created this bulwark. And Israel has essentially dismantled it. But Iran is not going to let this go. And they are also keen observers of history, right? In 1981, Israel, in one fell swoop with 8 or 9 warplanes, managed to destroy Iraq's nuclear weapons program in Osirak, and there was no response. In 2007, Israel did the same thing in Syria, and there was effectively no response, destroying its nuclear capability. This is different. Iran is a nation of 90-plus million people, and they showed their incredible fortitude in the 1980 to 1988 war against Iraq. They lost 1 million people. And for the Imam then, the Khomeini, and Khamenei, who is his successor, making a ceasefire with Iraq and ending that war was called drinking from the poison chalice. And basically they're at that precipice again. Are they going to make a ceasefire, or will they continue fighting? At this point, I think it's understood, again, looking at recent history, when you give up your WMD, that is all you have. Gaddafi gave it up, and we saw how he was essentially butchered in the streets after he was captured. He was overthrown. So it seems, if history is an indicator, that the regime is going to try to hold on as long as possible. You mentioned Khamenei already has appointed 3 successors. I imagine they're going to go underground, and they're going to keep fighting in any way they can, lashing out at the United States and Israel with whatever capabilities they have left. And I think it would be very dangerous for anybody to underestimate the capabilities that Iran has at this moment. Even though they may be significantly degraded, they have been stockpiling them for many, many years. They are a very, very potent and capable adversary.
And Matt, thank you. And something else to watch here is the terror threat in the U.S. and around the world, and what this attack by the United States on Iran potentially does to that. Does it elevate here? I think that many would expect that it likely would. And we know that Iran has been a sponsor of terror all across not only the region but around the world, and we'll see how that plays out too. I do want to go back to the White House. I'm told our Selena Wang is there right now. Selena, you were there earlier as the president arrived for this meeting with his national security advisors. What more are you learning about the discussions and what played out in those meetings?
Well, Whit, you and I were actually on the air together as that meeting with his national security team was underway, and the president, for days now, he's been speaking to a wide array of his advisors and allies. In fact, right now, his Secretary of State Marco Rubio is here still at the White House, and the president has been weighing a variety of different factions. On the one hand, you have a group of Republicans, more traditional conservatives like Senator Lindsey Graham, who had been urging the president to take forceful, swift military action. Then on the other hand, you really had frustrated members of his MAGA base who were urging the president to hold back, arguing that any U.S. military intervention or
Okay. We'll get right back into that too. I'll put it back on there. Greetings, y'all. Peace, Kelly Ray. So everybody knows or that doesn't know, the U.S. just bombed Iran maybe less than 2 hours ago. This comes as a surprise to a lot of people because Trump just said that he would wait a couple of weeks. I had a feeling something was going to happen, so I was looking since earlier, didn't see nothing, but he just spoke to. I'll play that again because I know a lot of people didn't see that. He spoke very briefly, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll get right back into that. I'm Kiy NY7. This is something that should be on everybody's mind. This channel isn't just really politics, it's the community, spirituality, and astros, but this is something big. I'm going to go right back to Trump's speech that he did just hours after bombing Iran. I'm going to look to see the poll to see what y'all are thinking about how you feel about the U.S. bombing Iran. Is it a good idea, bad idea? Israel has been crying out for help all the time. I think they cry wolf a lot. We'll see what happens. I also want to show something from the Young Turks because they've been speaking on this non-biasedly, just factually, and we'll see what y'all think, how y'all feel about it. So I'll get right into that too. Appreciate y'all coming through. I had to put my new little fitted on. All right. Oh, I'll get right to that right now. If I missed anyone, sorry. Oh, here we go.
Thank you very much.
Oh, here we go.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was short and sweet by President Trump. Anyone new or just tuning in, the U.S. did just bomb Iran about maybe less than 2 hours ago in efforts to join in with Israel. So we'll see what happens, y'all. I already feel like we in World War. I see y'all saying that in the chat. I'm not shocked by it. I felt like something was going to go down. I thought it was going to happen earlier, but we'll see what happens. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat. How do y'all feel about it? Are you concerned? Are you overseas? Are you in America? You know, do you feel nervous about it? Are you excited about it? I don't. Okay, I got a lot of votes on the poll. Okay. So I put a question in the chat. Do you agree with the U.S. bombing Iran? Oh, we're split. Almost totally split. 49% of y'all said yes, you do agree with the bombing that occurred just a couple hours ago. 51% of y'all said no. So it's really split. Half of us feel that we should be involved more and do want to proceed with the bombing. Half of us are saying no, shouldn't be in the war. Wow. Thanks for subscribing. Okay, James. All right, thank you. Any new subscribers too? I appreciate y'all coming in. I tried to come in early and show that. There's a lot of discussions going on in the news too. I'll go right back to that too. And then I'll check back on the poll to see what you guys are thinking in the chat. That's good to know too. And appreciate y'all coming out. Yeah, thank you. People be scared to hit that like button. I could have a monkey juggling in the background. It could be fire. It could be anything going on. People like to come get stuff quick because I try to put stuff in real quick, but they don't hit that like button for nothing. It's all good though, because whatever's meant to be for me.
Civilian purposes. Israel certainly felt that while it didn't show evidence that Iran was trying to make a bomb, there had been some earlier suggestion a few years ago that was the case, that they would have the capacity to do so in a very short period of time. And by that point, it might be too late to act. Now, I think we're going to expect to hear from Israeli officials, but one imagines that will take place after President Trump has spoken. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here, so people are just gathering the news at the moment. Were Israeli jets involved?
Someone just asked a good question. Do I think, or do we think they're going to bomb the U.S.? They're already threatening to, but we're supposed to be protected with our, I don't mean to sound ignorant about it, but I don't know what you call it, but you're supposed to know before the U.S. would even be attacked. So, I don't know, y'all.
Leadership of Iran, not the supreme leader, of course, but key decision makers, key military people, and key scientists who are all involved in Iran's nuclear program. So, certainly speaking, off the record, Israeli officials are very pleased with what they've done. They even intimated to me just a couple of days ago that they could almost declare this as victory at the moment, but they still wanted to feel that they had degraded Iran's capacity to produce uranium to a point where it no longer represented a clear and present danger. And that's certainly what these three operations are about. So we need to wait to hear from the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Presumably we'll wait until President Trump has spoken. We need to wait and hear from the Israeli Defense Forces about what exactly their role was. But I think the key question for all of us, as we get caught up in the minutiae of these kinds of operations, is what does it mean?
Capitol Hill. She posted, it seems like maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes before this operation was learned about in the general public. She posted that,
but then
quote,
they said they were
this is not our fight. She goes on to say that peace is the answer. So definitely some divisions on the further right of President Trump's party against this military action.
Jay O'Brien for us in Washington. Thank you. If you're just joining us right now at the top of the hour, we are coming on the air with this breaking news. President Trump ordering a strike on Iran. 3 separate locations using B-2 stealth bombers. These are 3 nuclear sites, including a full payload that he says at the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. That, according to a social media post from President Trump. He's saying now is the time for peace. We have correspondents across the region and in Washington taking a look at all the details as they come in. But we know that earlier in the day, we were getting flight tracker radar information that those B-2 stealth bombers were on their way from the United States, we thought, to Guam. What we don't know is exactly what happened, if that was some sort of diversion or if there were planes that were moved to different places. We're getting more details on all of that as information comes in tonight. We're going to go back to Louis Martinez, who covers the Pentagon for us. He's been getting some of that information. Louis, I understand you have new info about how all of this played out tonight. What have you learned?
We have just learned from a U.S. official that, yes, B-2 bombers did conduct a strike in Iran, along with several dozen other aircraft. No other details are being provided right now, but at least we've solved one of the mysteries, which is that, yes, those B-2 bombers, not necessarily the ones that were in Guam. I still haven't confirmed that, but we do know now that B-2 bombers did conduct some of the strikes at some of those 3 locations identified by President Trump in his Truth Social posting, and that several dozen other U.S. military aircraft were also involved in that strike.
And Louis, do we have any sense about what happens next now? We've talked about the verification process, about President Trump says that these attacks were successful, but do we know if there are troops in the region who may join Israeli troops to potentially go check out some of these sites and see what damage was done?
Well, one of the things that is always going to take place is bomb damage assessment. The term that was used at the Pentagon is a BDA. And sometimes it can happen pretty quickly, and because you have drone aircraft, you have other aircraft that have surveillance capability that are monitoring the area that is going to be struck by the lead bombers who are carrying out and dropping the munitions. So in this case, there may have been some aircraft that had eyes on, if you will, that were monitoring that, and that feed is more than likely going to be analyzed to see how successful a strike it was. In some cases, the BDA can take hours. In other cases, it can take days. So it remains to be seen exactly what we're going to see here. But in terms of this particular strike that was carried out by U.S. bombers, knowing that there were several dozen other aircraft, we can kind of imagine what the roles of those aircraft were. Potentially, they were providing security. So in case there was something along the lines of other aircraft in the skies, we know that Iran has a not very capable Air Force. We're not even sure that some of their aircraft have even gotten off the ground over the last week as hostilities have taken place between Israel and Iran. We know that it is a very degraded air defense environment for the Iranians, which means that the Israelis have had air superiority. Remember that mention from President Trump earlier in the week where he said we have air superiority. And of course, at the time we raised questions because the United States had not been involved over Iran, but we had seen the Israelis being the only ones carrying out air operations inside of Iran. And the way they were doing that is because over the last year, there were 2 airstrikes carried out inside of Iran, and namely the one in last October, severely degraded their strategic air defense systems, which meant that the Israeli aircraft could come in at a distance and fire their standoff weapons. And with those strategic air defense systems gone, they were flying at will over Iran. And I think that situation makes it a little bit easier for American aircraft flying above Iran. Of course, there's always the risk because there will always be air defense systems around some of these facilities, whether they've been taken out or not. There's always a risk when you're flying over an adversarial country's territory. But in this case, we know that there were several dozen other aircraft involved in the strike, along with the B-2 bombers.
Louis Martinez, thank you so much. I want to go back to Steve Ganyard, our ABC News contributor, former State Department official. Steve, I know that you've been reporting on the buildup of American forces in the region. It's really quite unprecedented what we're seeing.
Yeah, it is. It's extraordinary, Whit. We will soon have, when the Ford leaves Norfolk and gets to the region in probably about a week or 10 days, we'll have 3 aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf region. That has not happened since 2003. So there's an unprecedented amount of naval air power and naval power in the region, to include those ships that we've seen offshore of Israel that are participating in the defense of Israel with the missiles that are able to knock down incoming ballistic missiles. On the Air Force side, there have been hundreds of airplanes deployed not only to the region but to Europe. There are tankers backed up all over Europe. In just about every NATO country has lots of U.S. tankers that will provide an option to the president. So clearly the strikes that went on tonight were probably enough. Maybe they'll have to go back and reattack one more time, but it's probably enough to take out all of the nuclear sites that the Israelis hadn't touched yet. But the amount of firepower, the amount of combat capability and capacity that the president has built up in the region is far more than would be needed just to take out the nuclear facilities. So perhaps this is part of the deception and the mind games that he wants the Iranians to know, that if the U.S. decides to go back in, if the Iranians do something to go after U.S. troops in the region, we have to be concerned about sleeper cells in the United States. If there is something that comes back at the U.S., then that's going to be a problem for Iran. And the U.S. certainly has the amount and the capacity of military power that would be used to go back at Iran and to finish the job.
But Steve, the Iranians have said that you could destroy our nuclear facilities, but you can't destroy our knowledge, the information that we've built up over decades on this. What kind of threat is that? I mean, if the facilities are gone, how quickly could they potentially rebuild the material to make a bomb?
Well, with the facilities gone, it's going to take a long time, because the centrifuges are really what would need, as Ian was talking about before, that most of the enrichment is at about the 60%, but it's only about another 5% of effort to get up to 90. So the centrifuges are key. To your point, though, the human knowledge, the intellectual property that they have developed over the years to be able to think about how to develop a nuclear program is key. So what do the Israelis do? In the first few minutes of this opening, a salvo here against Iran, they borrowed from the Hezbollah playbook, and they took out many, if not of the top 10, top 15 nuclear scientists that are working on the nuclear enterprise within Iran. So they took out the people who knew and had the knowledge, and so that, they hope, will be enough to prevent the nuclear program from being recapitalized. One additional point here. So we have to figure out where the enriched fuel is and who can get to that. So that will be part of any post-war deal where it's the IAEA, it's some independent body that's going to want to get in and secure the previously enriched uranium to make sure that the Iranians cannot use that to reconstitute their program or to build a nuclear weapon.
And Steve, a follow-up to this, because I think a lot of Americans at home right now are wondering, what this means for us and our safety around the world. I know the region has changed so much in recent years. You mentioned proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. Who could potentially come to Iran's defense as an ally? What does Russia do? What does China do? How should Americans be looking at this?
Yeah, you'll notice that both Russia and China said, "Hey, yeah, nice. We like your drones and we like your oil, but we're not getting involved." So right now, Iran is totally isolated, and not only are they isolated, but they have no defenses. And not only is the Mossad operating on the ground with impunity, but the Israeli Air Force is flying over the skies of Iran unimpeded. So they have no friends, they have no allies, they have nobody that's going to come to their aid. So this sets up some concern about revenge attacks. If you'll notice, I believe it's been more than 24 hours since a ballistic missile has been launched from Iran towards Israel. That is because the Israelis have been working very hard to knock down all the launchers, to go to the facilities where they store these ballistic missiles. And so we see this decrease. And they're shooting drones, but drones are not as effective. They take a long time to get to Israel. So a very effective 8 or 9 days where the Israelis have taken down that ballistic missile capability. As that goes along, and as the Iranians continue to be pummeled, and while the Israelis piece by piece take apart their military, their IRGC, their internal security apparatus, this is going to eventually get to a point where the regime will be weakened and something will happen. What will happen? We don't know. Is it something better going to take the place of the regime, or is it something worse? This is always the risk in war, not knowing what the branches and sequels and outcomes will really be.
And in a country of 90 million people. Steve Ganyard, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I want to go to Aaron Katursky, our chief investigative correspondent. And Aaron,
all right, let's go to some of the feedback on Trump right after his speech. There's some conversation going on regarding that now. Go ahead. My bad. Hang on a second.
QB. Courtney, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Tonight on Dateline. News special report. Here's Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. We are coming on the air with breaking news from the White House. President Trump posting on his Truth social media platform just moments ago. The U.S. has completed a, quote, very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites inside Iran. The president saying that all U.S. planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. Let's go directly to what the president has just posted on his social media site. We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Efeshan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. The president continues to state, congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. In caps, now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This all comes after a week of back and forth strikes between Israel and Iran after Israel hit key targets related to Iran's nuclear program. Tonight's news has major implications for American foreign policy, with the U.S. now directly involved with the conflict between Israel and Iran. Let's go right to Vaughn Hilliard. He is at the White House this evening. Vaughn, what else have we learned?
The president just returned from his New Jersey golf course just about 2 hours ago. He came here back to the White House. A Marine has been standing outside of the West Wing as he met with his national security team. And right as this social media post was put out by the president, I saw the Secretary of State Marco Rubio on his phone outside of the West Wing doors. The president just yesterday, when I was with him on the tarmac as he headed to New Jersey, he had put out this idea that Iran had 2 weeks to potentially negotiate a nuclear agreement with the United States and end the Israeli airstrikes into Iran territory. Now, the president himself had suggested that they would have 2 weeks max, but notably did not rule out a more immediate strike. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu had asserted that Israel had the capacities and the ability to take out the nuclear facilities. And when I asked the president very specifically about the Israeli prime minister's claim, he pushed back and undercut that assessment, saying that the U.S. was the only one that had the bombing capabilities to strike particularly the Fordow nuclear site, which there are activities half a mile underneath the ground. It is not clear at this point in time whether B-2 bombers were used in this instance to take out the Fordow nuclear site. So I don't want to jump ahead of what we know here at this time. But for the president, this is a striking moment, attacking a Middle East country that the president had sought for the better part of the last 2 months to negotiate with. But clearly, the president making the decision to go forward with these strikes, despite Iranian threats that they would respond in kind by attacking U.S. military installations. There are a lot of outstanding questions here about where Iran goes from this moment, but the United States standing in solidarity with Israel, who 1 week ago began that attack with their initial airstrikes into Iran. There are a lot of outstanding questions, Jose, here at this hour, but the U.S. taking a significant step. And I will note that I had the chance to ask the president yesterday very specifically how this moment was different than the decision of a previous Republican administration more than 20 years ago to strike over questionable intelligence about weapons of mass destruction. And he said that he knew that they were building a nuclear weapon. That is in contrast to the assessment of his own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who suggested that the U.S. intel community did not have that same intelligence. Jose.
And Vaughn, during that conversation that you had with the president, he essentially said that his director of national security was wrong in her assessment that Iran had not yet gotten to the point where they could either build or complete building a nuclear weapon.
That's right. We know that, especially over the last months, that Iran has enriched high levels of uranium that could go into developing a nuclear weapon. But there's a distinction. Again, just yesterday, in an interview with our Andrea Mitchell, the Iranian foreign minister exclusively told her that they are using uranium for peaceful purposes. Now, the question here that you just alluded to was Tulsi Gabbard. Again, Donald Trump, the president's handpicked director of national intelligence, standing by their assessment that they have no intel that an actual nuclear weapon was being developed. Now, there are questions of whether that would take weeks, months, potentially a year to actually build that weapon. But the Iranian foreign minister making it clear to our colleague Andrea Mitchell that they had no intent to build a weapon. Of course, this is a long-standing back and forth here between the United States and Iran. It was 10 years ago that under the Obama administration, an initial nuclear agreement was struck between several European countries and the United States that would allow inspectors into several of these facilities, including the Fordow nuclear site that we were just discussing that exists half a mile underneath the ground here. But back in 2018, the Trump administration decided to pull out of that. There were sunset provisions. They said that it did not address proxies of Iran and that they felt that issuing sanctions would be more serious means. So there's a lot of questions here tonight for the president and this White House to answer.
Von Hillard at the White House, of course, keep on this, stay monitoring this situation. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have more breaking coverage right now on our streaming network, NBC News Now.
All right, y'all, can we take a quick break? All right, I want to check on the poll that I put in the chat. I appreciate y'all coming through and for participating in any kind of way if you have. I put a question in the chat. Do you agree with the bombing of the U.S. bombing Iran? We're still split. There's almost 1,000 votes, 948 votes. 52% of y'all said no. So 48%. say yes. Let's go to something different. I'm gonna do some savage moments of Trump, then we'll get back into some more of the live, and then I'll probably peace out. Appreciate y'all coming through. I'm Kiy NY7. Appreciate y'all. I'm seeing what y'all saying in the chat. It looks like a lot of y'all aren't with the war, but we are very split, according to the poll. But thanks for coming through.
They don't have to even, it's true. No, I gave them that. Save a lot of money. That'll be next. No, they'll be doing that next. So the Mexican government is not happy with me, to put it mildly. And again, I respect Mexico, but their leaders are too smart for our leaders because we have stupid leaders, okay? You mean it's not politically correct and yet everybody uses it? So you know what? Give me a different term. Give me a different term. What else would you like to say? Oh, you want me to say that? Okay. No, I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby. He would give a sermon you never wanted to leave. Sometimes we have sermons, and every once in a while we think about leaving a little early, right, even though we're Christian.
And pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person. Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
Who is Uma married to? One of the great sleazebags of our time. Anthony Weiner. Did you know that? She's married to Anthony Weiner. You know, the little bing, 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 bum, bum. I love you very much. I'm a very militaristic person, but you have to know when to use the military. I'm the only person up here that fought against going into Iraq.
Can I make a response to that?
Just excuse me 1 second, Rand, if you don't mind, Rand. You know, you are on last, you do have your 1%.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
You heard that joke? You just said I'm the only one that was against bombing Iran. Hold on, let's go back.
I'm not sure I have. I just go in and try and do a better job.
Take a little break.
When to use the military. I'm the only person up here.
Hold on.
Married to Anthony Weiner. You know, the little bing, bing, bing.
Said again.
Bum, bum. I love you very much. I'm a very militaristic person, but you have to know when to use the military. I'm the only person up here that fought against going into Iraq. Just excuse me 1 second, Rand, if you don't mind.
We'll go back live. I'll let y'all go. Thanks for coming through. It's Kiy NY. Hope y'all doing good.
At the same time, can still want to be a unifier, a peacemaker. You heard those calls for peace again today coming from the president as he addressed the nation again tonight. But there is no doubt this has created a divide within the Republican Party, even leading up to this. As we were reporting that the president was warming up to the idea of U.S. involvement, of possibly striking Iran, we heard from a number of Republicans who did not want the president to move forward with this, who expressed concern and frustration about the U.S. being involved, primarily because of that campaign promise that the president made, that he was going to be a unifier, that he was going to be a peacemaker, that he was going to withdraw the United States from these ongoing foreign conflicts. This, of course, directly goes against that. It's at odds with that. At the same time, David, I will tell you that speaking to my sources and Republican members on Capitol Hill, the president received numerous calls from Republican lawmakers, even from Senator Lindsey Graham, who was urging the president to get directly involved. He wanted to see the United States join Israel's effort in this. And obviously, the president also, I'm told, getting a lot of pressure directly from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as well. We've also been working the phones, David. We are learning tonight that Speaker Mike Johnson and also Senate Majority Leader John Thune were in fact notified that the U.S. was going to be carrying out these strikes. We're also told that Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was also notified as well, but given very little details. We are also told, David, from multiple sources that the Gang of Eight, this is the top leaders on Capitol Hill in both the Senate and the House, that they were not given a full briefing as the United States made this decision, the Trump administration making this decision to move forward with these strikes, David.
Rachel Scott covering this as well with us here tonight. Rachel, always great to have you with you and your context as well. I do want to mention the statement that's been released by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, obviously. Video statement. He congratulated President Trump for his, quote, bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities. The United States, Netanyahu said, has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime, the world's most dangerous weapons. And as you heard Rachel say, you heard other correspondents here along the way point out that this was exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu had been hoping for, that the U.S. Would become directly involved with Iran, which is what played out tonight. President Trump addressing the nation about 53 minutes ago now to let the nation know that the U.S. military has struck 3 nuclear sites deep inside Iran, Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. Obviously, Fordo is the site that in particular deep beneath the ground, beneath that mountain, B-2 bombers were used. We believe those 30,000-pound bombs were also used to target these sites. The president saying they are completely, totally obliterated, though we'll have to see in the hours and days to come what kind of assessment from international observers can be made about the damage done tonight, though clearly there was significant damage done, and the White House believes beyond repair in many cases. I want to bring in retired Colonel Steve Ganyard again with us. Steve, you and I have been talking about U.S. military capability, and regardless of where people stand on this politically, this was a significant use of force tonight and something that has long been studied by not only this administration, but administrations before it. President Trump, the president who has decided to move forward with this in a key moment when air defenses were significantly weakened in the skies over Iran, Israel essentially controlling those skies as U.S. B-2 bombers flew in tonight.
Yeah, David, John Carl is reporting that Tomahawk missiles were also used in the strikes tonight. Now, Tomahawk missiles, as you remember, are cruise missiles, and they hug the earth, so they fly very low, and they aren't intended to do this deep penetration that we needed the B-2s for. So the point here is that it really was just the B-2 crews that were in danger tonight. We didn't put any other U.S. forces over Iran, so there was very little risk other than to those B-2 crews. Given how sophisticated the B-2 is, there's very little likelihood that the Iranians would be able to do anything about it. So the question will be, how far will the president be willing to go, depending on the Iranian reaction, in terms of deploying military force that may involve putting U.S. forces at greater risk than we saw tonight.
And of course, Steve, you heard the president there warn that if peace doesn't come quickly from Iran now, that we will go after additional targets with speed and with skill. We have that animation that shows what these bunker buster bombs can do. If we can show that, because a U.S. official now confirms that B-2 bombers dropped a number of massive ordnance penetrator bombs. As you know, that's the long term for these bunker buster bombs, 30,000-pound bombs. Now confirming to ABC News that they were used in this mission tonight over Iran. The official also confirming that a number of Tomahawk cruise missiles were fired at targets inside Iran from a U.S. Navy submarine. You heard President Trump addressing the nation 10 p.m. Eastern here tonight. Brief words and then getting on social media again shortly thereafter to warn Iran and its proxies against any sort of retaliation. But at first word tonight, which came shortly before 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, the president saying, we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside Iranian airspace. A full payload of bombs, he said, was dropped on that primary site of Fordo. That is the key site that is deep beneath sort of a range of mountains there. And we had reported for some time that it would probably take those bunker busters to actually do significant damage to that nuclear facility. And again, ABC News now confirming that those B-2 bombers did drop those 30,000-pound bombs. Our coverage will continue first thing in the morning for many of you. Your local news is next. Good night.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Appreciate y'all coming through. This is Kiy NY7. I'll be breezing out in a minute. Gonna show a little more Trump stuff, something to make us laugh a little bit as we move on. So anyone that's just finding out, the U.S. did just bomb Iran just days after Trump said he was going to wait a couple weeks, which I thought was kind of strange, to even respond. So it looks like you guys are kind of saying different things, but according to the poll that I did, we're divided on whether or not we should even be in this war. So yeah, you could, whenever you come here, feel free to share your thoughts. I just ask you to be, respectful as you can. I appreciate it. And I'm Kiy NY7. I appreciate y'all. Y'all stay safe. All right.
And let's make it right. Let's say that Jeb Bush or Hillary or one of these politicians, all talk, no action, all controlled by lobbyists and special interests and donors, people like me from previous months, okay? Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know what that is, right? We have heads being chopped off because they're Christian in the Middle East. We have borders where people are being killed all over. The world is cracking up, and they're worried about my tone. So what would President Trump do? So I don't have money. I don't have lobbyists. In fact, I've had, in the last 2 weeks, because I've hired many of the lobbyists. That's true. I hire lobbyists. They're great. They're terrific people. They can do whatever the hell you want them to do, okay? It's true. I was a businessman. I got along with Clinton. I got along with everybody. Yeah. That was my job, to get along with people.
But the simple fact is...
Excuse me. 1 second.
No.
I didn't want to
get... Donald, you cannot take...
More energy tonight. I like that. Look.
I was asked the question.
I didn't want... It was my obligation as a businessman to my family, to my company, to my employees, to get along with all politicians. I got along with all of them, and I did a damn good job in doing it. Go ahead.
So...
And the poll just came out, and I'm tied with Jeb Bush. And I said, oh, that's too bad. How can I be tied with this guy? He's terrible. He's terrible. Hillary Clinton was the worst Secretary of State in the history of our country. The worst. Our enemies are a disaster. Our friends, and they hate us more. So Uma is getting classified secrets. She's married to Anthony Weiner, who's a perv. No, he is.
Somewhere there we'll find a balance tonight.
So I would have dinner with my kids almost always, and I'm always available to my children. I could be in the middle of the biggest, most important deal. For instance, if Ivanka called me right now and say, bye-bye, Frank, you're a wonderful guy. I think it's unlikely, but if Jeb became president, when they say, Mr. President, it's very bad that Ford's building in Mexico. Oh, okay. We'll do something. Let me go to sleep first. We'll do something. We need somebody that can take our jobs back, Frank, because we're going to hell. Our country's going to hell. And Frank doesn't like the word hell, but we're going to hell. I beat the people from China. I win against China. You can win against China if you're smart. But our people don't have a clue. We give state dinners to the heads of China. I say, why are you doing state dinners for them? They're ripping us left and right. Just take them to McDonald's and go back to the negotiating table. Seriously. Well, I heard Hugh Hewitt, a nice man, he apologized because he actually said that we had a misunderstanding, and he said today that Donald Trump is maybe the best interview there is anywhere that he's ever done. Now, unless he was just saying that on CNN to be nice, but he did say that.
Oh, you're the best interview in America.
And we had a legitimate misunderstanding in terms of his pronunciation of a word, but I would say just, well, I think it was. And he actually said that. Did you say that?
I think I'll be on in the morning too. Head stuff of security is going to, national security is going to be on in the morning. So that'll be our next possible update. Okay. So we'll do that. I'll try to stay as up to date on the channel. Yeah, thanks y'all. Peace. Take care. Closing out.
very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. Were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God, I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bad it is so that maybe they could get some money to fix it up. How stupid is 24-year-old phones and wires that don't work, and the people, they're interviewing the people that are working in these phone systems, and they're saying, no, you can't hear. You can't hear. And I'm saying, can you believe what we're doing? It's like in the war. They were saying, we're going in 2 weeks and we're going to be attacking a certain city. You know what I'm talking about. And we're going to attack, and this is the way we're doing it, and we're going here. And I'm saying, can you imagine the great General Douglas MacArthur or George Patton, any of these great guys, listening to a president say exactly what we're going to be doing? Then I said, you know, that's smart, because they'll do the opposite. They didn't. It was exactly as he said.
First of all, these lenders aren't babies. These are total killers. These are not the nice, sweet little people that you think, okay? You know, I mean, you're living in a world of the make-believe, Chris. You want to know the truth. Right now we have Obama. He won't call. He doesn't even call to get our hostages back from Iran. Here we are in the middle of a deal, and he doesn't call about that. One sentence, I'd say, you got to, before we start, get those people back. Used to be 3, now it's 4. Get those people. They'd be back the next hour. You hear our politicians, John McCain, 2 days, oh, Benghazi, you don't hear about it anymore. Hillary Clinton with the emails, oh, the emails, 2 days. I'm more disappointed in the Republicans in many ways. They talk and talk and talk.
And I just got back from Chattanooga, too, and I spoke to some Marines there.
And guess what happens to Anthony Weiner? A month ago, I see he went to work for a public relations firm. Do you believe it? Now, if you think that Uma isn't telling Anthony, who she's probably desperately in love with, in all fairness to Anthony, because why else would she marry this guy? Can you believe it? Can't see straight. But if you would...
I got involved because I'm in the nursing home profession.
Okay, come on, you know, I gotta go. Hey, come on.
Oh, wait a minute. No, let me finish this.
Okay. You know what? I think your question's great, and I can understand. He's talking about basically counterfeit parts, just to cut to the chase. We don't have to know that you're in the nursing home business. What, are you trying to talk to some of us about joining your little home? Come on, sit down. Enough. We think it's good. We think your point is good. Yeah, give it to him. Good. They said to Marco Rubio, are you having fun? He's sweating like a pig. I never saw a guy sweat like this. The sweat is pouring down. I think Rubio is a low energy, but here's the problem with Rubio. When you sweat that much, now think of it. So you have Putin, he's sitting over here. And he's waiting to kill the stupid Americans because he's been just destroying us so badly. So he figures, oh, and a guy walks in and he's soaking wet and sweating. Hello, hello, can I have some water? And Putin's sitting there, what the hell kind of stuff is this? This is not exactly a poker player, folks. John McCain goes, oh boy, Trump makes my life difficult. He had 15,000 crazies show up, crazies. He called them all crazy. I said, they weren't crazy. They were great Americans. These people, if you would have seen these people, I know what crazy is. I know all about crazies. These weren't crazy. So he insulted me, and he insulted everybody in that room. And I said, somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, you know, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, you know, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured. Newsflash, the Republican Party's been fighting against a single-payer system for a decade. So I think you're on the wrong side of this if you're still arguing for a single-payer system.
I don't think you heard me. You're having a hard time tonight.
All right,
I know Anthony Weiner for a long time. I knew before they caught him with the... I did. But when the folks of Iowa found out the true facts of the job that you've done in Wisconsin, all of a sudden you tubed. He was #1, now he's number 6 or 7 in the poll. So Jeb Bush, let's say he's president. Oh, yeah. He knows it's so good. He'll have a little pressure. Don't let the plant be. His lobbyists who... Jeb Bush will never take us to the promised land. He doesn't have it.